No one in the glittering hall that night could have guessed what would really happen. They had come for a spectacle. A 19-year-old bride in a shimmering dress, a groom old enough to be her grandfather, and rumors of unimaginable wealth. Waiters glided between marble columns carrying silver trays, journalists craned their necks for a glimpse. Yet behind the velvet curtain, where the orchestra's sound dulled to a heartbeat, Anna clutched her bouquet so tightly her knuckles turned white. If the crowd had leaned closer, they would have heard her whisper to herself, "Just breathe. Just get through tonight." From the very first moment, the question hung in the air like perfume: why would such a young woman marry such an older man, and what secret lay behind their wedding night? Anna had grown up in a fishing village far from this kind of opulence. Her world had been narrow streets, chipped teacups, and a father whose laughter filled their tiny home until the illness came. One winter evening, she had sat by his hospital bed, staring at the unpaid bills on her phone screen, feeling the walls closing in. That was when she first heard Victor Moreau's name. He was a billionaire businessman who had funded the hospital's new wing, a man who appeared in glossy magazines next to politicians and film stars. Anna had never met him, she only saw his photograph on the plaque by the entrance: silver hair, eyes like still water, a faint smile that didn't reach them. Their paths crossed because of desperation. Anna worked as a receptionist at the hospital to cover part of her father's bills. One afternoon, Victor arrived for a charity inspection. The elevator doors opened and she found herself face to face with him. He looked at her as though he had seen a ghost. "What's your name?" he asked, voice low and careful. When she told him, his expression softened. He spoke to her boss, arranged a private room for her father, and left a business card on the counter. On the back he had written, "If you need help, call me." Weeks passed. Her father's condition worsened. She called. Victor invited her to lunch at a quiet restaurant, not the flashy kind but an old French place with faded wallpaper. He listened as she explained everything. "I'll cover his treatment," he said simply. "But there's something I'd like to propose." Anna felt the floor tilt. He explained that he needed a wife, a partner for public events, someone respectable at his side. He would provide security, education, a future. In return she would marry him. "It will be a contract," he said. "No pressure beyond what you choose." She went home, trembling, and told no one. The offer sounded like a story out of a novel, a way to save her father and escape her dead-end life. She wrestled with guilt, with fear, with a faint spark of curiosity about the man whose eyes carried such sadness. 2 weeks later, she signed the papers. Now she stood behind the curtain of the ballroom, ready to walk into a world she didn't understand. The music swelled. The doors opened. She stepped forward on legs that felt like glass. Cameras flashed. Whispers rose like a tide. Victor stood at the altar, tall and composed in a dark suit, his silver hair catching the light. He smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a man who had won a prize, it was the polite, cautious smile of someone bracing for impact. The ceremony passed in a blur. She repeated the vows in a voice that didn't sound like hers. When Victor slid the ring onto her finger, she felt the weight of it more than the sparkle. People clapped. A reporter murmured, "Poor girl," while another muttered, "Lucky girl." Anna kept her eyes on the floor. Afterwards, in the limousine, silence stretched like a rope between them. The city glittered beyond tinted windows. Victor cleared his throat and reached into a leather case, pulling out a small velvet box. "This is for you," he said. Inside lay a diamond necklace so bright it seemed alive. "This is your shield," he murmured. "You will never be harmed while you're with me." Anna didn't know what to say. She turned her face toward the window, the necklace heavy in her lap. The penthouse suite at the top of his hotel awaited them. When the elevator doors opened, Anna expected some kind of awkward consummation. She had steeled herself for it, but the scene looked like a library more than a bedroom. Soft rugs, walls of books, a fireplace flickering. Victor guided her to a sofa and poured tea, not champagne. He sat across from her, not beside her. "I want you to feel safe," he said. "We don't have to rush anything." Then, unexpectedly, he began to talk. He told her about growing up poor, about building his empire from nothing, about losing his first wife to cancer. He spoke of a daughter, Clara, who had died in a car accident at 20, and how every charity wing he built was an attempt to atone for the time he had been absent. Anna listened, confused, her anger softening into something like pity. She had prepared herself to be used, but instead she found herself listening to a confession. When he paused, she blurted out her own truth. She told him about her father, about the debts, about how she had agreed to marry him to save a life. Her voice cracked. She expected him to be angry, to accuse her of deception. But Victor simply nodded. "I know," he said quietly. "I wanted to help, but I wanted someone near me who wasn't playing a role." His eyes shone but didn't break. For the first time since the proposal, Anna looked at him not as a powerful stranger but as a man. He had lost a daughter the age she was now. He had built walls of money around himself, but inside those walls he was as lonely as she was desperate. The realization unsettled her. She pushed the tea away and stood by the window, watching the city lights. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "I don't know who I am anymore." Victor rose but didn't touch her. "You don't owe me anything tonight," he said. "You're free to sleep in the guest room. Take your time. All I ask is honesty." He walked toward the study and left her alone. Hours passed. Anna wandered through the suite, touching spines of books, staring at oil paintings. In the guest room she sat on the bed, clutching the necklace. Outside, the city hummed. She thought of her father asleep in a private hospital room, safe because of this man. She thought of her own dreams, to study, to travel, and wondered if they were lost or just waiting. Tears slid down her face. She realized that whatever this marriage was, it wasn't what people imagined. Just before dawn, she stepped into the corridor and found Victor asleep in an armchair, glasses on his nose, a file open in his lap. He looked older than 70, he looked human. She draped a blanket over him and returned to her room. In that quiet gesture, something shifted between them. The wedding night that everyone gossiped about had not been a night of seduction or scandal but a night of revelation. Two strangers, bound by a contract, had begun to see each other as people. The chapter ends with Anna standing at the window as the first light touches the desert horizon, the necklace still in her hand. She doesn't know if she'll stay, but she knows the story people think they're watching isn't the one that's actually unfolding. That question, what she will do next, what this marriage will become, is what pulls the viewer forward into the next chapter. The first light of dawn poured through the penthouse windows like liquid gold. Anna had not slept. She sat curled in the guest room armchair, staring at the skyline. In her lap lay the diamond necklace, still in its velvet box. All night she had replayed Victor's words, "You don't owe me anything tonight." For the first time since she had signed the marriage papers she realized she had a choice. She could leave, go back to her village, start again. Or she could stay and find out who this man really was and who she might become in his world. That unspoken choice hung in the air like a held breath. When she emerged into the main room, Victor was already awake. He had changed into a simple white shirt, no tie, no jacket. He looked less like a billionaire and more like an aging teacher, his hair still damp from the shower. He held 2 cups of coffee. "You're up early," he said gently, offering her one. She hesitated before taking it. "I don't know what I'm doing here," she whispered. "I don't know what to tell my father." Victor set his cup down. "Tell him the truth," he said. "Tell him you're free to go. I'll still pay for his treatment. You don't owe me a thing." The words landed like a stone dropped into a still pond. She had expected obligation, expectation, even guilt. Instead he offered freedom. "You would just let me go?" she asked. "If that's what you want," he replied. "I never wanted a prisoner. I wanted someone who would walk beside me of her own will." He turned and looked out the window. "I lost my daughter because I tried to control her life. I won't repeat that mistake." That morning became the true turning point of their story. Anna returned to her room and cried until her chest ached. She had stepped into this marriage to save her father's life, now she had to decide what she wanted for her own. For days she walked through the suite like a guest, exploring the library, the rooftop garden, the swimming pool that reflected the sky. Victor gave her space. He still attended meetings, still spoke on phone calls in French and English, but every evening he returned not with demands but with quiet conversation, asking about her father, about her dreams, about what she wanted to study. Gradually, her fear began to thin. She told him she had always dreamed of studying business but had never been able to afford university. "Then study," he said simply. He arranged for a private tutor to come 3 afternoons a week. Anna was suspicious at first. Was this just another form of control? But the lessons awakened something in her she had forgotten: curiosity, ambition, the thrill of learning. She began to take notes, to ask questions, to read the books in Victor's library late into the night. Outside the penthouse, the tabloids still buzzed. Paparazzi photos of her at Victor's side at charity dinners appeared online with captions like, "Gold Digger Bride," and "Beauty and the Beast." Anna felt their sting but said nothing. One evening she found Victor reading one of those articles, his jaw tight. "They don't know you," he said. "You don't have to prove anything to them." But Anna realized she did want to prove something, not to the tabloids, but to herself. Over the next months, she started to accompany Victor to his foundation meetings. At first she sat silently at the back of the room. Then, one day, she raised her hand and offered an idea for a scholarship program. The board members looked surprised. Victor smiled. "Go on," he said. She explained how young women from villages like hers could be recruited, how microloans could be paired with mentorship. By the end of the meeting, the proposal was on the agenda. Victor introduced her afterwards not as his wife but as our new program advisor. That small shift changed everything. Anna felt herself waking up. She was no longer just a girl in a shimmering dress, she was someone with a voice. Victor began to step back, letting her take the lead on projects. He still protected her from the harsher corners of the business world, but he also challenged her, encouraged her, and listened. When her father finally recovered enough to travel, he came to visit. He was thinner but smiling. Over dinner he told her she no longer needed to stay. "You've done enough," he said softly. "You saved me. You don't owe him your life." Anna looked at Victor across the table. He wasn't looking at her, he was reading a report. In that moment she realized she wasn't trapped anymore. She wasn't even sure Victor needed her. The decision was hers alone. That night she walked out onto the balcony where the city glittered below. She remembered the girl who had whispered, "Just breathe," behind the wedding curtain. She thought of the classes she was taking, the programs she was building, the lives she was touching through the foundation. She saw Victor's loneliness in her own growth. For the first time she felt a surge of gratitude instead of resentment. She turned to her father. "I choose this," she said quietly. "Not because I have to. Because I want to." The next day she proposed a new initiative, a school for girls from rural areas, combining education with entrepreneurship training. Victor listened, then slid the proposal back to her. "You lead it," he said. "I'll fund it, but you run it." She blinked. "Me? Yes," he replied. "It's your vision. I'll be the one in the audience for a change." Months later, the school opened. Cameras flashed again, but this time the headlines were different. Young philanthropist launches education initiative. Anna stood on stage, addressing a crowd of students, donors, and officials. Victor sat in the front row, clapping quietly, pride in his eyes but no need to stand in the spotlight. When she thanked him publicly, she also thanked herself, for having had the courage to step into a frightening arrangement and then to rewrite it on her own terms. As she ended her speech, she looked directly into one of the cameras. She thought of the strangers who had speculated about her wedding night, about her motives, about her future. "Sometimes," she said to the crowd, "we enter a door out of desperation. But what we build once we're inside, that's where our freedom lives." Her words echoed in the hall. Victor's eyes shone. Somewhere in the audience, her father wiped away a tear. That became the real ending of the story that had begun with whispers and rumors. The wedding night everyone gossiped about had not been the scandal they expected but the first step of an unexpected transformation. Two wounded people had found a way to heal, and a young woman had discovered her own power in the least likely place. For viewers, the message was clear: even choices made under pressure can be reshaped into something meaningful if met with honesty, respect, and courage. The last image is Anna walking down a hallway filled with students' photographs, the diamond necklace no longer around her neck but framed on her office wall, a reminder of where she started. Victor walks a few steps behind her, smiling but letting her lead. The camera lingers as she pushes open the door to a classroom filled with girls raising their hands, eager to learn. The life she once thought she'd lost now multiplied in dozens of young faces. That's where the hook from the first chapter resolves. The wedding night changed everything not because of scandal, but because it became the night she discovered the freedom to choose her own story.